Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. And in today's video, I want to talk about hair transplant and why I didn't consider it in my hair loss journey. And for you guys who are on the channel for the first time, my name is Alex, and I'm previously hair loss sufferer who was able to regrow back my own hair, and I'm also a certified trichologist. So in today's video, let's talk about hair transplants. And hair transplants is something that is seen as an easy solution to the hair loss, basically a way out of the hair loss problem once and for all. And the thing with hair transplant is that it is something that is valid method if the hair loss is stable and you know what is causing your hair loss. Then doing a hair transplant is likely an option one can consider. But in my case, for example, there were so many variables, so many causes of the hair loss, and if I did a hair transplant, it would likely end up in a disaster. And to basically understand my situation, and likely it will help you guys as well to understand what you need to look for, is that there are different variables that can cause hair loss. And when I first noticed the hair loss back when I was 17, 18 years old, is that I had a hair loss because of nutritional deficiencies. So basically what happened is that I had a deficiency in vitamin D, and it did cause that I was losing hair in a kind of pattern that was uncharacteristic, like it's an uncharacteristic pattern of the hair loss. So I was starting to lose my hair on my sides, and that's kind of strange patterns that can happen if one is, for example, having nutritional deficiencies or other issues. And in my case, it was a combination of nutritional factors and also a diet that was not optimal. And I started to lose hair on the sides, and I have spoken about it in previous videos. So if you want to check more about my journey back then, you can check up a couple of those videos. But basically what happened is that I was able to detect the problem, and I was able to solve it by taking vitamin D supplements and also by addressing my diet. And I was able to fully recover my sides. And what happened next is that I had around 1 year of okay hair situation without any thinning, and then I started to notice that I started to thin out on my temples and my top part, like there was a lot of diffuse thinning. I didn't lose the hair on the sides anymore, so sides was solid, there was no issues there, but I was losing hair on top part. And what happened next is that it just kept progressing to the point where I actually was very scared about my situation, and likely I had developed very high DHT sensitivity because I had previously like a weakening in my follicles with vitamin D deficiency and poor diet, and also I had a lot of stress in my early 20s because of the studies. I was studying in university for my bachelor degree, and also I was doing a part-time job, so I had a lack of sleep. I was also not having a healthy lifestyle. I was having a bit overweight, and all those things led to that I have become DHT sensitive, and I started to lose ground again. And at that time, again, I went to the doctor and I got prescription for Finasteride. And I started to take Finasteride, and I was able to recover my hair once again. So this is basically me from baseline to 2 years later. And as you can see, I was able to recover or get very good results with taking Finasteride during those 2 years. And once again, I basically saw that I can get results from treatment if I address the right problem or right variable. Right? And the first time I had a hair loss, it was because of nutritional factors, it was because of vitamin D. And second time, it was because of DHT sensitivity. And both times I was able to address it with the right approach. And once again, basically, hair transplant was not an option. And also what we kind of need to remember is that those things happen in early 2000s, right? So basically back then, hair transplant results that I did see from other people who had done this kind of procedure, they were not good, right? So there was often a lot of failures, and they were not happy, and they basically ended up shaving their head. Like basically in my hometown, I did see a lot of guys who had done a hair transplant, and they had not results they were looking for. So this was other things that set me back, and I didn't consider hair transplant. And as time went by, in end of 2010, what happened is that I developed scalp inflammatory problems. And scalp inflammation was something that caused that I was basically having a lot of burning sensation on my scalp, a lot of sebum production, a lot of itchiness on the scalp. Basically led that I started to lose hair once again. Like I had a lot of diffuse thinning once again, and it happened basically all over the scalp, not just the top part or the sides, but I was losing hair also on the back area. And this is very important because if one is considering, for example, hair transplant, losing hair in donor area is a huge red flag. And I was losing a lot of hair during that time, and basically what happened is that since I already had experience with nutritional factors that could cause hair loss, DHT sensitivities that could cause hair loss, and now I knew that I basically had a new problem to address, and it was scalp inflammation problem. And I started to work on the scalp inflammation, basically by first finding out what it actually was, and I started to address it by steroids, medical shampoos, for example. And it kind of did work to suppress it, but it never went away, right? And that's basically the time when I started to work on my diet, I started to work on my lifestyle, basically improve every aspect of it, making sure that there is no inflammation, no cellular inflammation, nothing in my diet that could trigger more of inflammation. I started to work on understanding the foods and the effect of them on the body and so on. And I was able to stop that scalp inflammation problem I was having around 2013. And when I stopped my scalp inflammation problem, I was able to stop the progression of the hair loss, right? So my hair loss stopped, and I was at a stage where I had gained back some of the hair that I had lost. It was not a peak results from Finasteride anymore, but I was kind of in the state where my hair did look kind of okay. But I wanted to have more hair growth, right? And basically what happened is that I started to look for options, and I did find a study about microneedling and minoxidil application, and this was back in 2013. And I did read the study, and I decided that this is something I want to try out. And I had tried minoxidil a couple times before in 2011, 2012, but each time I tried it, what happened is that my scalp got inflamed and I started to lose more hair because my scalp already was out of balance, and adding some kind of topical such as minoxidil that can be quite harsh just made things worse. And what happened in 2013 when I decided to try out Minoxidil, I didn't have any scalp inflammation anymore, so I actually was able to apply Minoxidil on my scalp, and it was okay, right? So basically what happened is that I started to do microneedling on frequent basis and apply Minoxidil. And if you want to know more about my approach to microneedling and Minoxidil, you can check a couple of videos that I made about this topic, also how I do it. But basically I was able to fully recover my hair after 2 years mark. Right, and again, it showed me that if I address the right problem, like right variable, I was able to have a nice recovery. And I got results from minoxidil microneedling even better than I got the first time I did just take Finasteride. And this basically led me to the path that I understood that each time I address the right problem, right variable, I'm able to recover from the hair situation. And what happened later on, in like 2 years later after my hair recovery from minoxidil microneedling, is that I overstimulated my scalp, like I was doing too much of microneedling, and I was applying too much of minoxidil, and basically it led that I was losing ground again. So basically what happened in the end of 2016, I was having a hair loss problem, and because of overstimulation. And again, I did my research, and I found out that it was that factor that was causing it. And when I understood that I had done too much of treatment of doing microneedling and application of minoxidil, I started to work on stabilizing my scalp environment, to fixing the problems that I was having on the scalp itself, and basically taking a break from topicals, and also stopping with microneedling for a couple of weeks. And I was able to slowly heal my scalp to the point where it was okay again doing those treatments. And once again, I was able to recover to the good results I was having the first time from minoxidil microneedling. And later on in 2017, again, I had issue with dermatitis, for example, that developed unfortunately. As from previous experience, again, I knew that I could basically be able to solve it. And again, I did take action, solve the problem, and I was able to have full recovery from dermatitis in the end of 2017. So there has been a lot of ups and downs in my journey, right? And the things when it comes to hair loss is that when the body, for example, is unbalanced, it will lead to that hair cycle will be affected and hair will shed out. But if one knows what is possible variable reason why the hair are falling out, one can solve this problem and basically recover the hair once again. And this is kind of reason why basically hair transplant was never an option that crossed my mind, because each time I had this issue, I was able to find a solution to it, because I basically had experience already from my nutritional deficiency journey, and also had experience with DHT sensitivity. So I knew that there is a variables that can cause it, and if I solve them, then I'm able to recover my hair. And that's basically led me to the path that I never considered a hair transplant. And if I did a hair transplant, for example, when I was having nutritional deficiencies, what would happen is that my hair would still continue fallout, and it will likely end up disaster. Same with, for example, when I had the DHT sensitivity. If I did a hair transplant back then, it also would lead to problems later on the continuous thinning. Or, for example, when I had a scalp inflammatory problem, same thing. So my point here is that you need to work on why and what is kind of reason why you're losing the hair in the first place. Right? And if you can figure out what is the reason for your hair loss, you can get results and you can keep your hair basically as long as you want. I'm a good example for it. Right now I'm 39 and I still have full set of hair. So for you guys who are struggling with the hair loss and you need guidance, help to solve the problem with hair situation, you can basically book a call. There is a link for it below this video. Let's talk.